Hi, hi friends. I'm Abdul Kalam Sheikh. I'm from RV College of Engineering. Today, I'm going to be showing you this assembly and assembly of a four-stroke engine. Uh, I'll also explaining the parts involved in the mechanism of the engine to work. And so, as you can see, I have taken a first generation Pulsar 150 motorcycle engine for today's video. So let's get started. So we will start off by first disassembly. So disassembling of the engine, we have these following tools required. Those are torque wrenches and spanners of size 12 and other sizes and bits. So first we start off by removing the left hand side of the crankcase where the alternator and the alternator's assembly is present. So by using round spanners of size 12 and torque wrenches of size 12 bits, we remove the bolts present on the casing, and by using a lever and a mallet we can remove the casing. So once the bolts are off, we place them on the floor so that we can arrange them back once we are done with the disassembly. So here in this process I need to use the mallet so that I can loosen up the crankcase, and by using the lever we gain access to the crankcase, left hand side of the crankcase where the alternator assembly is present. So and note here, please, before you start any of this, make sure that all the fluids present in the engine are drained out. Any excessive oil present will lead to leakages, and these are the various tools. So now we have shifted the engine outside due to leakage. There was excess oil present in the engine, so we had to shift it outside so that we can let the oil drain out, and also we could remove the valve head. So here in this process I am removing the upper part of the engine, that is the valve cover. So by using the 32 size bits we can remove the valve covers. So now we have removed the right hand side of the crankcase where the clutch plates and the gearbox is present. So here we are having a little bit of technical difficulties while removing this. So here you can see this is the gearbox and the clutch assembly, and here are the various parts present. So those are the parts which I have disassembled from the engine: the kickstarter, the clutch plates, the cylinder head, and we can see the arrangement here in this. So this is the clutch and the gearbox assembly. So here we have the idle gears, and now here we have the piston and the combustion chamber, and that's the timing chain which we can see here, and that's the upper and middle part of the cylinder, and this is the intake and the exhaust valves, and intake and exhaust ports, and these are the intake and exhaust valves, and where the camshaft assembly is present. So now these are air cooled fins, so there is no liquid cooling in this engine, and this is the alternator assembly, the alternator. So this is what powers the motorcycle. The alternator powers the electricals and electronics of the motorcycle. And this is the kickstarter assembly. So this bike has a kickstarter to manually start the engine. And this is the right hand side of the crankcase where the clutch and the gearbox is present. This is the two twin spark plugs and the intake housing. And we have the tensioner and the shank bolts which hold the cylinder in place. This is the camshaft which drives the cams and which helps in opening and closing of the intake and exhaust ports and valves. And this is the valve cover which covers the upper part of the engine. And these are the various bolts which hold the crankcase together. So these are the various parts of the engine, and this is what compresses the engine. Now assembling back the engine, we start off by first adjusting the camshaft and the tensioning and the timing chain, and we also mount the cylinder and piston into the place, and then we put the valve cover back. So now the valve cover is in place, we put on the bolts and screw them up tight. So here in this process I am putting back the cylinder head and the valve cover. So once it's tightened using a torque wrench, we then move on to the other bolts which are present on the cylinder head. So once these are bolted tightly, we then move on and fix the tensioner. So this is what is used to tension the timing chain which is present inside the engine. And this is the clutch plate, and that's the clutch plate assembly, and that's it. So uh, the holder which places the clutch plates in the gearbox, and also it keeps the plates in check. So now we bolt back the right hand side of the crankcase where the gearbox is present, and we put all the bolts and screw them up tight. Once this process is done, we keep the engine on the upright position, and then we move on to the left hand side of the crankcase and also bolt them all up tightly where the alternator assembly is present. Once this is done, then the kickstarter is finally installed back to the engine and it's tightened up, and then the spark plugs on either side are put back together, and here the assembly of the engine is completed. So this engine had a few missing parts, so we can procure them and make this engine running. Thanks for watching the end. Thank you.